Families can be messy, especially when loss and money collide. When my parents passed, I thought my sister and I would lean on each other for comfort, but instead she hid something that belonged to both of us, our parents' will. I found out the truth too late, and what followed wasn't just betrayal, it was a courtroom showdown that changed everything. Stay with me, because when the judge finally read the truth aloud, my sister's reaction was something none of us expected. And if you've ever dealt with family secrets, this story will strike a chord. Losing both of my parents felt like the floor had been ripped from under me. The house was too quiet, the rooms too still. For weeks after the funeral, I wandered through their belongings with a strange mix of grief and disbelief. My sister Linda seemed stronger, or maybe she was just better at hiding it. She took charge of the arrangements, handled the guests, organized the service. I admired her for that. I told myself, thank goodness I have her by my side. I couldn't do this alone. In those early days, we sat together at the dining table, sipping lukewarm coffee, whispering about childhood memories. We cried, we laughed. And when the subject of inheritance came up, she brushed it off quickly. Don't worry about that now, she said, patting my hand. We'll take care of it later. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She was my big sister, the one who always seemed to know what to do. But as the weeks turned into months, I began to notice little cracks in her calm surface. Whenever I asked about Mom and Dad's paperwork, insurance, bank accounts, the will, she grew strangely evasive. Her answers were always vague. It's complicated. I'll handle it. Don't stress. You wouldn't understand all the legal stuff. At first, I let it go. I told myself she was just overwhelmed, maybe protecting me from the details until she was ready. But the longer it went on, the more unsettled I became. One afternoon, while cleaning out Dad's desk, I found an old folder labeled estate planning. Inside were drafts, notes, and letters addressed to their lawyer. They weren't complete, but they made one thing clear. My parents had worked hard to be fair. They wanted both of us to share what they'd built. That discovery lit a spark of suspicion I couldn't put out. I asked Linda directly one evening, have you spoken to the lawyer? Did Mom and Dad leave a final will? Her eyes flickered just for a moment before she forced a smile. Don't worry, everything's being handled. It was the kind of answer that wasn't an answer at all. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, a knot forming in my stomach. Something was wrong. My parents had been meticulous planners. They wouldn't have left things unfinished. And Linda, my own sister, was acting like there was something she didn't want me to see. I wanted to believe the best of her, but deep down I knew she was hiding something. The uneasy feeling gnawed at me every day. I wanted to trust Linda, but something about her calm dismissal didn't sit right. Our parents had worked their whole lives for what they had. 2 homes, some savings, and a small piece of land they were so proud of. And they were fair people. I knew in my heart they wouldn't leave one child out. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I called their attorney's office one morning, my hands trembling as I dialed. The receptionist paused when I mentioned my parents' names. Then, almost apologetically, she said, oh, the will was filed weeks ago, but I was told it was being handled by your sister, Linda. My chest tightened. Filed? But I haven't seen anything. The woman hesitated, then added, I can't disclose too much without authorization, but I can tell you this. Your parents wanted both their daughters included. It felt like a punch to the gut. My parents had left clear instructions, and Linda had known. She wasn't just delaying. She was hiding it. That evening, I confronted her directly. We sat across from each other at her kitchen table, the same table where we'd once shared secrets and laughter as kids. Linda, I said firmly, I spoke with the lawyer's office. I know about the will. Why haven't you shown it to me? Her face drained of color for a split second, but then she straightened, her voice sharp. Because it doesn't concern you the way you think it does. What do you mean? I demanded. She crossed her arms. Mom and Dad wanted me to take responsibility. I was the one who cared for them, who stayed nearby. You had your own life. They trusted me. Her words stung, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt. She wasn't telling the whole story. Linda, I whispered, my throat tight. They loved us both. I know they wouldn't cut me out. Not after everything we've been through. For the first time, her mask cracked. Her voice rose, defensive. Fine. You want to know the truth? Yes, there's a will. And yes, you're in it. But if you knew what it said, you'd just fight me. And I can't... She stopped, her words tangled in frustration. I sat in stunned silence, my heart pounding. It wasn't about protecting me, it was about protecting herself. Finally, she muttered, almost to herself, I didn't think you'd find out. Not so soon. That night, I left her house with shaking hands. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. My own sister, the person I thought I could lean on in grief, had chosen secrecy over honesty. And if I hadn't called the lawyer, I might never have known. But now that I did, there was no turning back. I would see that will with my own eyes. And if Linda wouldn't give it to me, I knew exactly where I would find the truth: in court. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and nerves. I sat on one side of the room, clutching my folder of papers, my heart pounding so loudly I was afraid everyone could hear it. Across from me, Linda sat stiffly in a navy blazer, her eyes fixed on the floor. She wouldn't meet my gaze. I never thought it would come to this. Sisters, separated by grief, now staring down each other in a courtroom. But the truth had to come out. And if it meant dragging every secret into the light, then so be it. The judge entered, calm but commanding. His robe swayed as he settled into his seat. "We are here today regarding the estate of Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," he announced. "There are questions surrounding the execution of the will and the disclosure of its contents." I swallowed hard. Questions. That was a polite way of putting it. To me, it was betrayal. My attorney spoke first, laying out the facts: that my parents had indeed filed a will, that it had been withheld, that I, as their daughter, had a right to know. Every word landed like a stone in the quiet room. Then Linda's lawyer stood, his voice smoother, more rehearsed. "My client has acted in the best interest of the estate. She managed her parents' affairs, cared for them in their final years, and did what she believed was right." I felt heat rise in my chest. What she believed was right. By hiding the truth? The judge raised a hand. "Enough! The court will hear the will directly. We will let the document speak for itself." My breath caught. This was it. The clerk approached with a sealed envelope, the kind that seemed too ordinary for something that held so much power. She opened it carefully, slid the papers out, and handed them to the judge. The room seemed to shrink as he adjusted his glasses and began to read aloud. "This is the last will and testament of Richard and Margaret Thompson." The sound of my parents' names brought tears to my eyes. For a moment, I could almost hear their voices, see their faces. This wasn't just legal jargon. This was their final message to us. The judge's voice was steady, deliberate. Line by line, he laid out their wishes: the house, the land, the savings, every piece of their life carefully divided. And then, the part I had been waiting for: "To our daughters, Linda and Sarah, we leave equal shares of our estate, with the expectation that they will care for one another as we cared for them." Equal shares. I exhaled sharply, my vision blurring with tears. They hadn't chosen one over the other. They had loved us both, just as I had always known. Across the room, I finally looked at Linda. Her face was pale, her jaw tight. She shifted in her chair, her hands gripping the edge of the table. The judge continued reading, but I barely heard the rest. The words echoed in my mind: equal shares. My parents' love was balanced, fair, and Linda, she had hidden it, hoping I would never know. When the judge finished, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. It wasn't just a legal matter anymore. It was a family laid bare, with no more shadows to hide in. The silence after the judge's reading felt heavy, like the air had thickened. I sat frozen in my chair, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over me. Relief that my parents' love for me was confirmed, sorrow that it had taken a courtroom to prove it. Then suddenly, Linda broke the silence. "This isn't fair," she burst out, her voice echoing off the wooden walls. Heads turned. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. She stood abruptly, her chair screeching across the floor. "I was the one who was there. I took care of Mom when she couldn't get out of bed. I made sure Dad got to every doctor's appointment. I sacrificed everything for them while Sarah lived her own life. And now you're telling me she gets half? Half of everything?" Her words stung like daggers, but I stayed quiet. The judge, however, was not so patient. He leaned forward, his voice firm. "Ms. Thompson, you will sit down and compose yourself. This is a court of law, not a stage for grievances." But Linda wasn't finished. Tears welled in her eyes, anger and desperation twisting her face. "You don't understand," she cried. "I gave up years of my life. I deserved more. They owed me more. That will—" She pointed at the papers on the judge's desk, her hand trembling. "It doesn't reflect what really happened." For the first time, I saw past her anger to the raw pain underneath. She wasn't just being greedy. She was drowning in resentment. The judge's voice cut through sharply. "The will reflects your parents' wishes. This is not about what you think you're owed. It is about honoring their decisions." Linda's lawyer tugged at her sleeve, whispering frantically for her to sit down. But she shook him off, pacing now, her words spilling faster. "All those nights I sat by Mom's bedside, all the times I stayed late at the hospital while Sarah wasn't even there, and now she gets the same as me. Do you know what that feels like? To give everything and be treated like nothing?" Her voice cracked on the last word. I wanted to stand, to tell her she wasn't nothing, that I hadn't abandoned them, that I had done what I could in my own way. But the judge spoke first. "Miss Thompson," he said, his tone measured but unyielding, "your sacrifices are noted, and your pain is real. But this court cannot rewrite your parents' wishes. They made their decision with full clarity, and it is the duty of this court to uphold it. If you continue to disrupt, I will have no choice but to remove you." The room went silent again. Linda's breathing was ragged, her hands clenched into fists. For a long moment, I thought she might continue fighting. But then, as if all the fight drained out of her at once, she collapsed back into her chair, tears streaming down her face. I sat there, my heart breaking. She was my sister, the girl I had shared a childhood with, and now she looked like a stranger, angry, wounded, defeated. The judge cleared his throat. "The will is valid. The estate will be divided as written. This matter is closed." The gavel struck, the sound final and cold, but in my chest nothing felt closed at all. When the gavel struck, the case was over, but for me and Linda, nothing truly ended. We left the courthouse in silence, walking out side by side but worlds apart. The summer air hit my face, hot and heavy, but all I could feel was the weight of everything unsaid. I thought she'd rush off, but instead, Linda lingered at the steps. Her arms were crossed tightly, not out of confidence, but like she was holding herself together. I approached carefully, unsure if she'd lash out again or crumble. "Linda," I began softly, "I never wanted this. Not like this." Her eyes flashed, weary and red from tears. "You think this was easy for me? To hide the will? To carry that guilt? I didn't do it to hurt you. I did it because I was scared. Scared that after all I'd done, I'd still end up with nothing." Her honesty caught me off guard. For the first time, her anger peeled back to reveal the fear beneath. "You were never going to end up with nothing," I said quietly. "Mom and Dad wanted us both to share. That wasn't just money. It was their way of reminding us to stick together." She shook her head, bitter. "Stick together? Look at us now. Courtrooms, lawyers, judges. We're not sisters anymore. We're enemies." The word cut deep. Enemy. That wasn't who we were supposed to be. I remembered us as kids, building forts in the living room, whispering secrets under the covers, vowing we'd always have each other's backs. "We don't have to be enemies," I whispered. "We can choose different, Linda. The money, the land, that's just stuff. What matters is whether we let this destroy us." For a moment, her expression softened, like the sister I knew was still in there. But then she looked away, her voice small. "I don't know if I can forgive myself. Or you." I didn't push. Sometimes wounds need space before they can heal. Weeks passed. The estate was settled, the paperwork filed, the assets divided evenly as the judge ordered. But the silence between us lingered. Every time my phone rang, I hoped it would be Linda. It never was. And yet, I held on to hope. Because families don't break in one day, and maybe they don't mend in one day either. Maybe it takes time, patience, and the willingness to see past hurt into love. One evening, I drove past our parents' old house, now technically ours. The porch light was still broken, the garden overgrown. But standing there, I could almost hear Dad's laugh, Mom's gentle hum as she cooked. They would hate what had happened to us. They would want us to do better. I pulled out my phone, hesitating. Then I typed a message. "Linda, I miss you. I'm here when you're ready." I didn't know if she'd reply. I didn't know if things could ever be the same. But I knew one thing for certain. Our parents had left us more than property. They had left us the chance, however fragile, to be sisters again. And I wasn't ready to give up on that. In the end, it wasn't just about a will or money or property. It was about family, the bonds that can bend, even break, when trust is lost. My sister and I walked through fire that day, and though the scars remain, so does the memory of what our parents wanted most, for us to care for each other. If you've ever faced betrayal inside your own family, you know the pain cuts deeper than anything else. But remember, healing is still possible. It takes time, honesty, and sometimes the courage to send that first message. Because no matter how complicated it gets, love is the one inheritance that never truly fades.